Hello and welcome to a new video here on my channel. Today I'm telling you the story Eureka, a guide to the Mysticism, part 7. I hope you really like it. If you like it, leave a like and comment down below. The pictures in the background are not really up to date to the story I'm making in the next few days. A few more pictures for the story. I hope you have a lot of fun listening to my story. Then let's start right with the story.
Will this really work just by walking in? There aren't any rules from that. Equipaism, merchant guild saying people without spirituality can't enter, are there, or is there a way to find out? Myra asks, a little nervous at the thought of stepping into something completely new, a market that sells pretty much everything. You don't need to be afraid. They don't have strict rules about that. It's simply easier if you possess spirituality, but there's no regulation barring someone without it. Everyone has to start somewhere. If someone wants to become a beander and has the money, they can buy almost anything there. But be careful when you go in and out. Try not to let anyone follow you. The place itself is safe, but the people who buy mystical items are usually wealthy, which naturally attracts thieves and robbers who watch who goes in and out. Theater answers. So if thieves watch this place all the time, wouldn't we be in their sights? Or did your delirium effect already make our presence inconspicuous a few seconds ago? Myra asks. For a second, as Theater pulls his mask over his face, there is silence. Then he answers briefly. Myra finds it particularly interesting when he explains how his secondary delirium affinity has subtly altered his primary abilities. Where other primary Helios beyonders mainly gain sharper senses, his are different, still heightened, but more like a sixth sense. Do I understand that correctly? Your abilities let you sense when others are looking at you. I didn't expect that. I thought that mix of Helios and revelation would fit more because revelation is information and Helios is truth. Delirium is deception. How does deception and illusion combined with truth let you sense when someone directs attention at you? How does sensing other people's perception actually work? Myra asks, her mismatched eyes sparkling as they open the door to Equipaism and step inside. A bundle of night silver tulips, please, Theater says to the woman behind the flower counter. Nothing about her, from her brown eyes to her dark hair, appears remarkable, nor her clothes. Yet her soul burns as a fist-sized orb of green light. Okay, something about this person is off. But what exactly? Why do I feel like this soul isn't quite right? Maybe I'll figure it out later. I can't see anything concrete, except that the soul otherwise looks normal. Green and gold is beautiful, though. A very pretty soul, Myra thinks as she focuses on trailing behind her brother and not standing out. Those are rather rare flowers, sir. I'll fetch them from the back storage. If you'd like to come we can pick the exact stems, the woman with the oddly calm soul says, and, without further questions, leads the two unusual-looking customers through a short beaded curtain to the shop's rear while another woman takes the front counter. What the hell is wrong here? Myra wonders when the slightly brown-haired, bluish-eyed woman in the back appears to have the exact same soul as the first woman. According to everything she's seen about souls so far, it shouldn't be possible for multiple people to have the exact same soul. Did someone copy-paste one soul too many times? Myra thinks. How could that be? Is it a high-ranking beander who can split their soul? These definitely aren't fragments. Is it the same soul existing in multiple places at once? I don't know enough about souls to rule that out. Maybe a soul can be in several places at once. If a high-level beander did this, I have even less chance of stealing anything because I have no idea what abilities or effects are at work. Stealing from the largest trading guild was never a great idea to begin with. Even if God gave me courage 10,000 times over, I wouldn't deliberately provoke the lunatic a church or an organization nearly as powerful. That'd be suicidal in my current state. She forces down her greed and fear into the darker corners of her mind. The first chamber they pass through looks ordinary. But when they reach the spiral staircase leading down, the place slowly begins to change. With every step, the ivy along the walls becomes more distinct and everything seems more alive, even the stone feels like grown wood. Please wait in the waiting room until your number is called. You are number 36. When your number is called you may enter the next room and complete your transaction. Please keep it as brief as possible, we have other customers. The florist instructs as they enter a large, beautiful room. The room itself feels alive. Roots slither down the walls like snakes, pulsing with a soft green light. Fruit hangs from the ceiling, pulsing like a heartbeat. From the cushioned benches to a water dispenser that appears to be a natural waterfall emerging from thick foliage in the ceiling, which drains into a small pool like a miniature lake, everything is warm and organic. Well, I didn't expect this. What is that feeling of calm and peace in the air? Myra wonders as the silence is broken by the rustle of leaves above. Glancing around at the many people waiting, it's clear, no one speaks to each other, and very few came in pairs. Don't talk to anyone but staff. Everyone here could be dangerous. Remember, they could stab you in the back as soon as you leave. So if someone seems friendly, assume they mean to stab you in the back, literally, with a knife. I mean deadly. Theodore cautions with extreme caution. To Myra, it makes sense. Are you sure it's safe to be in here if people are ready to stab others in the back? Myra asks. Yes, I'm sure it's exactly as dangerous as I said. Beyonders are still human, and humans are driven by greed. Don't be naive like you used to be. Now that you're stepping into the mysticism world, you have to be careful. Theodore replies seriously. I'd also like to know if you can buy information here. I want to learn how Beander paths originally came to be. They don't feel God-given and immutable. There are rituals, and rituals can be modified with different resources or runes. So, in theory, they might be changeable. If people discovered or invented these rituals, they could be altered. Could I forge my own Beander path? Theoretically, start an existing path and later modify the ritual to gain other abilities? Myra asks.
Honestly, I don't know if that's possible. You ask far too many questions and I thought we were done with this topic for now. But in theory, maybe it could be possible. I have absolutely no idea. I never would have thought the Beander paths were man-made. That's too far in the past for me to say anything definitive. And I think if you dug that far back you'd go mad from cognitive poison. But to answer your question, yes, you can buy information here if someone has it, though it's bloody expensive, and believe me, while we're relatively well off, we still can't buy everything. Theodore says as they sit down. The silence in the room is almost oppressive. Only the rustle of leaves, the smell of flowers, and occasional scrape of metal on wood fill the air. It's far too quiet as the people in the room stare at one another in silence, each apparently trying to estimate the others. It's not polite to use spiritual methods to pry into other people's affairs. Please keep your spirituality to yourself, Theodore says, turning slowly toward an unremarkable man in a trench coat and hat. To Theodore's eyes the man looks ordinary, but not to Myra. As her gaze slides over the figure in the trench coat, she immediately notices something. He has no soul, even though his body radiates spirituality and appears alive. The absence of a soul indicates a corpse puppet. Well, it was only a matter of time before I saw another of those puppets. But still, how is he using spirituality? He shouldn't be able to produce spirituality. His soul is gone. So what keeps this body alive? Where does the dominion spirituality, what I'd call life force, in his body come from? Myra wonders, as a barely visible filament seems to run out of the man's body, like a signal or radio connection. Even after several seconds, that thin strand, a mix between thread and stream of energy, doesn't change. Okay, damn it, I can see something is supplying dominion spirituality, and that's probably the connection to whoever controls this corpse. So my suspicion was wrong. My Necron power does let me interact with the supernatural phenomena of this world, but not strongly. That means I can see souls and things that shouldn't be visible, but if it's not a soul I can't focus on it in detail. I still think the hypothesis that Necron derives from a different reality or a different fundamental basis than the rest of this world makes the most sense. If gods exist, either they're uninterested in this physical plane or they have no way to interact with it. Or maybe gods and higher beings simply can't see everything. Perhaps some effect keeps them distant from the physical. All of this is speculation. I don't even know for certain whether gods exist in any direct sense. But there's the Lunatica Church and belief in gods, which implies either the idea of gods reached this world at some point or actual gods exist. In any case, I can't change how Necron works. I can see spirituality indirectly, but I can't zoom in further. Maybe I can only see more when it's tied to a ghost. I definitely need more experience before I can say exactly what I can and cannot see. The biggest drawback seems to be that I can't see through walls. So Necron is a mix. I can see the dead in spirituality, but only within my line of sight, my normal physical vision. I can't see through walls and I can manipulate ghosts. That's a powerful and awesome ability, but it's limited. I wish it worked through walls. Myra thinks, frustrated that Necron is still tied to her physical eyes, so an eye patch or mask would disable it. If someone ever learns what Necron is, they could easily block it. It's almost ironic that a power as strong as Necron, which grants near control over ghosts, has such specific limitations and will be of limited use in many situations. In any fight against spiritualities other than Veil, Necron won't be very helpful. As it looks, it's a straight line leading from the puppet, and I just can't see through the wall. Which means my Necron ability is still tied to my physical eyes, at least to the extent that I can't see through obstacles without actual sight. If I ever manage to fully control a spirit, maybe I could transfer Necron to that spirit, but for now it seems I only have a huge advantage against ghosts and a big weakness against other spiritualities. So in every other respect I'm a normal human, except I'm apparently opposed to spirit manipulation. Ghosts seem to struggle to affect my body, and I have an anti-spiritual effect. Weaker spirits might cease to exist when they touch me. I can kill ghosts by punching them or by walking through them, which in turn causes its own problems. If I move through a ghost and erase it, that will draw attention. Shit, I have very specific abilities, and if I don't constantly observe both the physical and spirit worlds, I'll end up walking through spirits and deleting them. Or they could possess my body if they're stronger than me, which I can't rule out. Either way, this creates extremely odd problems. Myra thinks as the weight of the realization presses down on her. The situation is so absurd and specific it almost makes Myra laugh at the strangeness of it all. Excuse me, that was rude of me. I only noticed you're emitting a spiritual effect and got curious about what you were doing. If I offended you, I'm sorry. The corpse puppet says, and the spirituality it had been using fades almost entirely. That makes it easier for Theodore to deduce which spirituality it was, while Myra still finds it difficult. Damn it, I can't say exactly which spirituality he used, but it could be Helios, so the controller might be a Beander who chose either primary dominion with secondary Helios or vice versa. I don't know whether other Beander paths can control corpses, or whether artifacts can grant that power. I don't even know the exact criteria for an object to contain spirituality. Whatever path I choose, I'll need either someone to anchor it for me or an object that holds the pure spirituality of the path I want. I can't use an artifact with mixed spiritualities. So the book I was given won't help because it has mixed spiritualities. I need an object containing pure Veil spirituality. I don't know which object would carry Veil spirituality, and I can't just go to the cemetery. If I accidentally walk through ghosts there, I'll alert someone. There could be sects, and I'm far too inexperienced. I also need weapons to protect myself. That won't shock my brother much. I wonder if I can persuade him to teach me to shoot. Myra wonders as the tension ebbs as quickly as it began, though Theodore's continued caution shows the danger isn't over. As time passes and number after number is called, minutes feel like hours and hours like days. Myra realizes it's just boredom when she looks at a clock that seems to grow out of the roots. Only a few minutes have passed. So what exactly are you planning to buy here? Myra asks, looking at her masked brother, who wordlessly pulls a small slip of paper from his sleeve and presses it into her hand. 2 Dominion sigils, 2 loaded handguns, 30 cartridges, and finally an armor, Dominion flesh, is written on the slip. What does Theodore want to buy sigils for, and what exactly is that last item on the list? Dominion flesh, well, I'll probably find out. Myra thinks as her gaze flicks to her brother and the question forms on her lips just as her number is called and Theodore stands. Okay, that's our cue, Myra thinks as the oddness of the souls around them becomes clear, something that's not quite right, even though only a few of the shop's workers show it. Still, there are a handful of people whose souls are completely identical. After several moments of staring, they are ushered by the woman into another room where there's nothing but a table and a couple of branches hanging from the ceiling. Then it clicks in Myra's head and she understands what's so strange. These souls seem to be linked, as if the same soul exists in multiple places at once or as if offshoots were planted, almost as if the soul were a tree and the identical souls are saplings. Okay, Those are some strange thoughts, but if plants could have souls, then those women would be like living, walking trees, Myra thinks as the idea spreads in her mind. But when she looks around further, there are no other clues about what's going on with the souls. What exactly do you two want to buy? Asks a voice that seems to come from the leaves and the roots. Theodore doesn't answer. Instead, he unrolls the list in his hand. An overhead branch snakes down and snatches the little roll of paper. Oh ho, the beginner package for our little lady here. A good choice, says the voice that is neither male nor female, as if the earth itself were speaking. That will be 10 mark and 30 solire in total, the voice from the leaves adds. As Myra watches Theodore take out the money, she can't help but be surprised at how ridiculously expensive everything connected to the mysticism world is. Which of the meander paths would our little one like to follow? The pleasant voice asks, coming from everywhere at once. Theodore gives no answer. He stands, accepts a small brown wrapped package from the roots and tucks it away. With a simple hand movement, he signals they should go. Myra doesn't linger in a place so clearly tied to the mysticism world and follows him out of the flower shop without an unnecessary word. I wonder if it would be a good idea to ask whether there's a meander path that could turn someone into a sort of tree. Controlling a plant like the style down there and becoming a living plant might have huge advantages. And since balanced spirituality is associated with the color green and represents equilibrium or plant life and growth, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think a pure meander of that path could gain the ability to become a tree or some plant. I'm not sure how that would work. These are just hypotheses. But the very idea is a little terrifying. It would have to be a very high-ranking meander ability, definitely beyond the first 3 ranks. Not even the white dust rank, from what I can tell, should be able to make such drastic changes. But what are the higher ranks? There's the first rank, the apprentice rank. How it proceeds after that I'm not sure. I think white dust comes after that, then I guess the red vessel. But what comes after the red vessel? That's already a pretty high rank. Those are the first 3 ranks. There are definitely more, Myra thinks as her gaze again wanders over the crowd. None of the people there have multiple souls or any other oddities, especially not several people sharing the exact same soul, which alone had been absurd. Hey, little sister, you seemed thoughtful while we were in there. Were you so surprised by the Equipasum outpost that you didn't know what to say, or were you legitimately impressed or a little scared? Theodore asks with a worried look as they change back into their normal civilian clothes and pack away the disguises. Yeah, it was a bit of that. I was overwhelmed by the whole place. All those plants inside, it felt like the place was alive. I wonder how they can grow plants in an underground room, Myra replies uncertainly. Yeah, this world is full of wonders and dangers, that's why I wanted you to be careful. And this is for you, Theodore says in a serious tone, handing her the packet. The meat is called Dominion flesh for a reason. Dominion spirituality is something like the life force of animals, you could say. So this is like the life force of an animal concentrated into that piece of meat. It's a little gross, I know, especially raw, but I can't change that. If you need to run or fight, it's useful. Don't just use sigils without knowing how they work. These sigils are body enhancement sigils. In simple terms, they consume your life force to make you stronger temporarily. That's not equivalent to lifespan in the immediate sense, but over time your lifespan will be reduced if you keep using them. You do regenerate after a while, but it's dangerous. Using more than 1 per day could be deadly. Even using 2 that are only a few days apart could have catastrophic effects, making you seriously ill and very weak. It wouldn't be instant death usually, but you'd be drained, and using 2 at once would almost certainly kill you. So listen to your body and be careful. Before we go back to the hotel, I'll teach you how to shoot. There's a firing range near one of the rider quadrants, north of here. Theodore's words underline the seriousness of his tone. Yes, boss, Myra replies with a smile as one of the many items worrying her is answered. Her brother really will teach her shooting. Wow. I knew my brother had a lot of influence, probably because he's a meander and beyonders are rare, but that he can just walk into some rider's facility and use their resources to teach me to shoot without anyone asking questions, that's a bit much. A regular detective wouldn't just flash an ID and have people hand over training like that, Myra thinks 15 minutes later as she stands in an underground firing range among other riders training their marksmanship. Although it's difficult at first and the recoil takes getting used to, it quickly becomes easier. It's almost like I did this once before and just forgot how. But why is that? How can I learn so fast? Myra wonders as she for the first time that day glimpses something out of the corner of her eye that could just as well have been an illusion. "What's up, Theodore? You look like you want to say something," Myra says with a smile. "I don't know how to put it, but you seem a lot different than before. I get the feeling you're changing, but I can't tell whether it's for better or worse," Theodore says tentatively, watching the pattern in her mismatched eyes. "I don't know how to put it either. You're right, I have changed, and I don't want to keep lying to you. But I don't see another way right now. I'm still me, but yes, I've changed. There are things I'm sure I can't tell you because you'd suffer from them. Something very strange happened to me. If I went into detail, probably everyone around us who could hear would go mad," Myra says, the glitter of information she can't speak visible behind her eyes, the shimmer of something she shouldn't know. "That just makes me more curious, honestly. I don't know what you mean, but I can see you seem to be telling the truth. Maybe you can try to tell me bit by bit," Theodore replies, the tension between them building even though no one in the vicinity pays them undue attention. "My secret has to do with planet Earth," Myra says, and for a few seconds the words seem harmless, until Theodore feels a stabbing pain in his head, as if something hit him directly in the skull. It's over as quickly as it came when the cognitive poison fades, but that single sentence was enough to stagger Theodore of Silverstar, a Beander of the White Dust rank, and leave him unsettled. "Stop." Theodore of Silverstar grits out between clenched teeth as his head continues to throb. The phrase, "planet Earth," echoes in his mind. With each passing second and every further question about that planet it becomes ever clearer, this was cognitive poison. What sort of cognitive poison is that, and how did my little sister get it? How can she have withstood so much cognitive poison that a single sentence gives me a migraine? Theodore thinks. Lamplight of the shooting range, surrounded by the smell of oil and gunpowder. Outside, the distant murmur of engines and the low hiss of steam from the nearby manufactories filled the evening air. The world beyond was painted in shades of gray, factories coughing smoke into the iron-colored sky, brass fixtures glinting faintly in the dim light. Within this world of cold metal and ash, his sister's words felt heavier than lead. When Theodore finally had to face the truth, that his little sister hadn't been lying about the cognitive poison, his composure fractured like cracked glass. "Whatever on earth was that? Can you at least tell me, without poisoning me again, how you even got hold of that information? Or is the way the secret reached you already toxic as well?" he asked, his tone a mixture of irritation and unease. His hand tightened on the polished grip of the revolver he'd been cleaning, as if grounding himself against something unreal. Myra's eyes caught the dull glow of the lanterns, reflecting like shards of silver. "I'm afraid, brother, that no matter what I say now, I can't tell you. I warned you. I can't convey it to you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to, but when I'm ready, I'll try. I've changed, yes, but I still remember parts of our childhood. And recently, a few more memories have returned. For example, I can remember the old man's name again, and that we are half-siblings. Even though I've always just seen you as my brother. I don't know exactly why or what happened. I think I was too young, but I know Mother disappeared and was only briefly with your father. I think your mother died before I was born, Theodore. But you never treated me differently for being born the way I was. Other noble families called me illegitimate, said it was dishonorable for father to take another woman after his first died. But you never cared about that," she said softly, stepping closer, her voice trembling just enough to feel human amid the cold machinery around them. Theodore sighed, letting the revolver hang loosely at his side. "Well, I'm glad your memories are coming back. But you don't have to prove who you are. I know you're still you. It's just odd. And honestly, I don't know what to say or how to react. Just, please, don't start bringing up childhood stories again, especially the embarrassing ones. Still, I understand that there are things I shouldn't know. Cognitive poison is too dangerous. So I get why you can't tell me everything. But can you promise me that, when the time comes, you'll explain it?" "Yes," Myra said, smiling faintly. "I promise that when the time comes, I'll tell you everything." Cross my heart. She refocused on the paper target's downrange, the air trembling faintly as she raised the rifle. Her next shots hit perfectly, and she frowned, realizing it had become too easy. Exactly what's going on with your marksmanship? You look like an expert who forgot how to shoot and is getting it back fast. Did you take lessons without telling me? Theodore asked, raising an eyebrow. To be honest, I have no idea what's happening. It feels like I learned this before, but I didn't. I have no idea why my body moves on its own. I see, aim, and hit, as if I've done it 100,000 times before, Myra said, setting the rifle down. Her voice had that quiet tone one uses when one begins to suspect their own humanity is shifting. That strange sense of déjà vu followed her into martial training. On the sparring mat, beneath the pale electric lamps, her movements became fluid, not perfect but unnervingly efficient. Her boots slid lightly over the floor as she blocked her brother's strikes, muscle memory surfacing from nowhere. At least her speed, while impressive, wasn't so extraordinary as to make Theodore doubt reality. He chalked it up to talent, natural, perhaps divine in a whispering sense he dared not name. I wonder where the supernatural begins and where it ends, Myra thought as she caught her breath. Since when can I move so fast? Why do I feel less tired than I should? I haven't trained much, but my body acts like I have. Strange. Is this something innate, or is it connected to the Necron power, something from another world, another time? She parried another blow and countered instinctively, knocking Theodore back. The sound of boots on wood echoed through the gray training hall. I told you, you're a natural, Theodore said with a grin. I don't understand why you refused to train before. Huh, you're saying we fought before. I don't remember that at all, Myra said, confused. Don't you remember what I told you last year? You beat me once when you were 9, fair and square. I wasn't holding back much either. You've always been like this, he said, rubbing his neck as he chuckled. I still can't remember that, but okay, she replied, catching her breath. I need a break. Even during the pause, with steam drifting past the frosted windows and the distant hum of machinery outside, Myra's thoughts would not settle. Where did normalcy end and mysticism begin? Her reflection in the window stared back, pale skin, white hair, and eyes that gleamed faintly even in the dull gray light. What exactly is wrong with me? She murmured. I learned too fast. Shooting was too easy. Maybe it's because of Mark Tesla from another world, or maybe it's my body. But how do I prove that? She exhaled sharply, grabbing her coat. There was no point standing still. Survival required strength, and strength required testing her abilities somewhere quiet. That night, she ordered a carriage for herself, not telling Theodore anything. The city's lamps stretched long shadows over the cobbled streets as she climbed inside. I'll pay you double if you wait until I return. It won't take long, she said, handing the coachman a handful of silver. All right, miss, but you should be careful, he said, eyeing her uneasily as smoke drifted from the carriage lamps. The forest waited outside the city, dark, ancient, and mist-filled. Massive trees loomed like black spires beneath the moon, their bark slick with rain. Myra stepped down, the mud whispering under her boots. She moved between the trunks until the sounds of civilization faded behind her. This should be as good a place as any. Let's see what I get, she muttered. A faint shimmer of blue light flickered nearby, the spirit of Ares Blackstone, translucent and watchful. What exactly are you planning, and why should I stay away from you? She asked, voice like a ripple of cold wind. It's simple. I'm going to influence every spirit in the area. If I accidentally affect you, tell me immediately. I don't want to harm you by mistake, she said, raising her hands. Her breath fogged in the night air. Then the power awoke. Necron, a force from another world, humming through her veins. It was silent and invisible, yet the forest felt it. The air thickened. The wind died. An unseen pulse spread outward, quiet, imperceptible, but final. In one instant, the whispers of countless spirits went still. When the silent, soundless force in the darkness withdrew, the silence lingered for a few seconds longer, as if the forest itself had paused to react to the strangeness of the phenomenon. A second later, When the sounds of life flooded back in like a wave, Necron receded as well. That was unexpected. That's a huge amount of spirituality, Myra murmured, staring, lost in thought, at the sphere of pure spirituality in her hand. It didn't really surprise Myra, given that the spirituality of the dead, veil spirituality, was tied to concepts of veiling, secrets and death. Maybe it just happened too fast for me to notice. Oh well, bon appetit, I guess, she muttered as she rolled the little ball of light, which felt strangely warm and cold at once, between her fingertips. What the hell? Aries Blackstone wondered as her non-existent heart beat faster, hearing the unintelligible cries of the dead animals, the ghosts of this wood, issuing from that small, concentrated ball of pure spirituality. What kind of monster in human shape can compress, absorb and then just eat all the spirits around me in such a wide radius, everyone but me? Aries thought, a chill running down what should have been her spine, even though she ought to be dead. And yet the world itself didn't care, not about this young white-haired woman with two different colored eyes who had apparently taken on the identity of a young noble, as more and more strange phenomena unfolded. Aries, I don't need to tell you not to speak to other spirits about this. Can you even talk to animal spirits? Screw it. Don't tell anyone what you saw here, keep it between us, Myra said, her tone carrying a threat. To Aries Blackstone, those words sounded not only foolish but suicide, defying an entity that could use the spirit world like a toy. I can't, no matter what, afford to anger this being. Maybe, just maybe, she could give me a new life, create or lend me a body. That would be wonderful, to live again. Only because of her can I still exist in the living world as a spirit, Aries thought, imagining a cold bead of sweat trickling down her non-existent brow. No, I wouldn't think of telling anyone your secrets. But what's your next goal? That should be enough spirituality to become an apprentice Beander on the Veil path, right? Aries asked. Myra didn't answer at first. She turned and strolled back toward the carriage. For a few seconds, her white hair seemed to melt into liquid silver under the moonlight. I should now look for the right things, either a Veil Beander one rank above me, or an object that holds pure Veil spirituality, something with a lot more spiritual charge. But I need an object of sufficient significance. And I'm not sure I should go to the cemetery right now. There are far too many humanoid spirits there, and walking through without touching any of them would be hard. Especially with that little spark of soul fragments flitting about. I don't know what they'd notice, and there might actually be a sect. If so, I can't just walk in. It's risky. I've gathered enough spirituality, but I honestly don't know where to find what I need. Visiting that Equipasum outpost again would be problematic and expensive. Still, I'm pretty sure I already have the necessary information. The ritual matrix is identical across beginner rituals, except for the symbol in the center. But I still don't feel secure yet, so how do I do this? Myra wondered, her heart racing at the thought of finally stepping onto the Beander path, but the exact novice abilities of a Veil apprentice remained unclear. Myra paid the carriage driver the promised sum. He visibly relaxed that she'd returned from the forest. On the return trip the driver tried to make small talk, and Myra found having a human driver awkwardly complicated. Someone who could talk, who could later recount the strange job, where he had driven a white-haired young noblewoman at night. Aries, I think you could try taking over the body of this carriage driver, Myra suggested, quietly enough that only the former noble spirit Aries Blackstone could hear her. Although the desire for a new life was huge, Aries felt that stealing another person's life just to live might be unnecessary. Don't be like that. Did you kill the little elephant you controlled today because you took its body for a while? No, if the elephant's soul didn't get pushed out when you forced yourself in, a significantly stronger soul won't suddenly have a weaker connection to its body. It's not that simple, Myra said, annoyed that Aries didn't grasp the logic. But what if something goes wrong? I don't want to accidentally kill an innocent person, Aries said, her non-existent heart racing. When those two different colored eyes narrowed in the dim gaslit carriage, a cold shudder ran through her. Do as I say. I know the dead better than you do, so just do it. While you're at it, try to blur his memories of interacting with me. Practice a bit and train your influence over smarter organisms, Myra said, patience thinning. Myra herself couldn't say why she was so certain Aries would not be able to extract a living person's soul from their body. The idea of a spirit like Aries inserting itself into a living body was entirely new to her. But why do I feel so sure Aries won't be able to do it? Why do I have the same certainty as when I know something will fall if I let go, like a rule of gravity? Strange. Is that an instinct from the Necron power? No, that doesn't feel right. I have no idea why I'm this convinced, but I can feel it in my bones, Myra thought, watching as the spirit of the former noblewoman Aries Blackstone slid through the carriage wall and into the driver's body. For a few seconds there was silence in the carriage. Miss Myra, I managed to take control of this body, but it's disproportionately difficult. I think I can hold it for maybe 2-3 hours at most before I get thrown out again, the male voice of Aries said. See, I told you it wouldn't be as problematic as it seemed at first. Did you manage to blur his memories of interacting with me? Myra asked as she let her gaze drift from the comfortable padded interior to the flower meadow outside of Varen's gates. Even from a distance, the immense plants looked unnatural, though it had been natural in this world for as long as anyone could remember. Maybe it's because my life as Mark Tesla, those fragmented memories, showed a completely different world. Or why do I feel so strange here? The smallest flowers are probably 2 meters tall and the largest maybe 6 to 8 meters. Why do we in 2 parallel realities use exactly the same unit of measurement? Why is a meter here the same as a meter in Mark Tesla's world? Those were 2 totally different dimensions, 2 worlds that don't really resemble each other, yet we have identical units, meters and centimeters. That's oddly coincidental, Myra thought, mildly puzzled by how similar certain standards were between the 2 realities. Then she recognized a familiar flower, a hyacinth, except here it was 7 meters tall instead of a few centimeters. Even though it felt vaguely familiar, Myra couldn't help but be impressed by how enormous plants were in this world. Carrots, potatoes, strawberries, everything grew far larger than they ever could in Mark Tesla's world. Contrary to what she might have expected, this wasn't merely a memory quirk, in this world it was completely ordinary. Whether every plant held balanced spirituality or only a few rare specimens did, Myra could not tell. The absence of spirituality was impossible to prove. For now, she simply accepted the strangeness. Almost there, Miss Myra. Please be patient, I'll sort this out for you, said the spirit of Aries Blackstone, quite a peculiar name for a noblewoman. Myra didn't really mind the oddness of her new companion's name as the carriage pulled up. Why do I find myself starting to think of her as a friend? Well, whatever. I actually began interacting with her to test my Necron ability and because I was curious about the mysticism world. Now one thing led to another, and I suppose I see her as a companion, a travel companion or something. No idea. Still a little weird. Myra thought as Aries Blackstone returned to the coachman's body and the gates of a Varen opened before them like the enormous maw of some beast. At first a narrow slit of light, then widening into the city's glittering lamps. For a second the sight was breathtaking, 1,000 lights brightening the night. There were more lanterns and lamps than usual in the streets. Hey Aries, why are there so many lamps and lanterns? Is this some kind of festival? Myra asked, because the decorations and lanterns looked oddly familiar as the moon contrasted with the countless small golden and silver lanterns scattered through Avaren's streets. That you should know, it's the annual Silver Moon Festival, celebrating the start of summer. It runs for the next 3 days, the high point is on Sunday, Aries Blackstone said in a man's voice, which still felt strange. Okay. What can I say? I have memory loss. I can't remember so many things I should. Myra said, the tone of the coachman, Aries Blackstone, suggested disbelief, but in the end it didn't matter. I'm telling the truth. I really don't know about this festival. So what if nobody believes me? It's still the truth. Myra thought as she asked more about the festival's nature, whether it was some sort of harvest celebration at the start of the year to pray for a good crop. Even though Aries happily explained everything she knew, Myra couldn't find herself very interested. Parties and crowds made her uneasy. I hope I don't actually have to go to that festival, Myra thought. The idea of being alone and hunting for the missing object that would hold enough veiled spirituality to be used in a ritual sounded far more appealing than crowds. She still didn't know the exact criteria and object needed to fulfill the ritual. As the carriage creaked on through a Varan, her thoughts drifted from the pretty light display to what the actual prerequisites for becoming a Veil Beyander might be. A daring thought struck Myra. Since ghosts themselves possess Veil spirituality and since ghosts can possess objects and organisms, animals or people, why couldn't an object be imbued with Veil spirituality and used as the anchor? I think I can do it. But the ritual's components, the ritual matrix itself, might be tricky. Strictly speaking, blood could be used to draw the matrix. But if I use my own blood, it's problematic. I don't know how much I'd need to paint the whole matrix. Besides, blood is Dominion spirituality, not Veil. I'd actually need more Veil than Dominion. Damn. Why does it have to be so complicated? Maybe I should go back to that Equipasum outpost and buy the stuff. They sell everything except living beings, so bones and the like should be fine. Gross to use bone dust, but Veil spirituality is too easy to come by here. I could probably take another path, but it'd be harder to gather the right spirituality. So Veil is definitely the best path for me. I can get the spirituality easily because death is never in short supply in this world. I'm not limited to spirits of humans, animals and everything with a soul could work. If my little forest experiment proved anything, I can gather an enormous amount of spirituality, but I must be careful not to get detected. Myra thought, determined to walk the Beyander path and uncover the Mysticism world's secrets. Before she knew it, they reached the hotel where she would spend the rest of the holidays before the school year started. Oh, what a fuss, why is it so crowded? Myra said as she stepped from the carriage into the cool night air, smelling ash, smoke and baked goods. It was oddly quick how the atmosphere of an industrial city, sitting somewhere between an industrial revolution and early modernity, could change overnight. If everything had seemed normal yesterday, the night now felt like a different mood entirely. Both the poor in the slums and the wealthy in the richer districts seemed to celebrate the festival. The bustle was hard to ignore, even though it wasn't loud. You look a bit worn. What's wrong, Miss Myra? Aries asked with a raised eyebrow as she suddenly materialized beside Myra and startled her. Don't sneak up on me like that. You make no footsteps, it's really annoying. Maybe I should hang a bell around your neck. As for the festival, I don't think I'll sleep well with all that racket. It's not loud, exactly, but it's everywhere. I don't find it half as exciting as most people seem to. Too many people, too chaotic for my taste. Myra said, staring at the translucent, silver-white shape of Aries. After several days as a ghost, the figure showed no signs of decay. It was interesting that Aries no longer seemed to be drawn to the afterlife, even though Myra wasn't actively maintaining Aries' presence by using Necron. Maybe that's a basic property of Necron, Myra thought. In Mark Tesla's life, her other life memories, spirits didn't despawn. They answered questions as if they had no free will. In this world things felt different, but she hadn't been continuously using Necron to keep Aries from slipping into the beyond. That near-threshold feeling, where she could have permanently failed to pull the spirit back, had been terrifying. Like a black hole's event horizon, a point beyond which no amount of force helps. What should I even call it? Not a black hole. Maybe, beyond hole. No, that sounds lame. She thought as they climbed toward the hotel. Inside the hotel the festive mood was lightened further, even though the festival hadn't reached its peak yet. Walls that had looked monotone the day before now glittered with tiny colored tea lights and lanterns. It wasn't just the moon-like silver flames, there was also a golden light that looked almost like sunlight, which raised more questions than answers for Myra. Some phenomena in this world were strange compared to Mark Tesla's world, but it was hard to say exactly which things were truly strange. As she walked up the creaking stairs to her room, her mind returned to the past. When I died in that ambush on the way to Avaran, something happened. But what was it? I didn't truly die, but I was resurrected. Nobody should survive that. I bled and was in so much pain. If I didn't die completely, then what happened? Nobody else was there, so who used energy to keep me alive without me seeing it? What wound reversed? Or was it only my time that rewound? Who can reverse time? That's not some simple Beyander trick. I can't imagine who could do that, so it must be something else. Was it the Necron power? No, that doesn't feel right either. Necron can't rewind time. That makes no sense. I'm stuck. Either I'm immortal or I'm not. If I'm mortal, I have everything to lose. If I'm not, nobody must ever know. Myra thought as she opened her hotel room door. Her thoughts kept racing after she entered the warm room. For a moment everything was still, then her mind moved to what was most important, more important than a crescent moon festival.
Thank you for listening to Part 7 Eureka, a guide to the mysticism. Myra's journey through a world where nothing is quite as it should be, where plants tower unnaturally high, creatures feel strangely small, and ancient sects hide truths older than memory, is far from over. With her pragmatic mind, her mysterious powers, and the unsettling force known as Necron, she continues to peel back layers of secrets, slowly uncovering the hidden legacy her mother left behind. If you want to keep walking this path of mysteries, revelations, and quiet danger with her, you can find a link to my newest video on the left side of your screen, and on the right side you'll find the full playlist, so you can experience Myra's adventure from the beginning or continue where you left off. Until next time, stay curious, trust the unknown, and remember, some mysteries only reveal themselves to those brave enough to look closer.